Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Coaches Preview Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Qualls, and with us today is Centennial head coach Brian Rector and Independence head coach Scott Blade. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
We have the biggest game of the week, Dub, as Tate and I talked about on game day this week between you two guys. We know we have a four-horse a showdown this year between you two guys and Franklin and Ravenwood, and it's going to be interesting as the year goes along to see who battles out those top spots. And I know that it's probably not as much fun coming from you guys because you put in the time, the effort, and all the stress. But from us, from our perspective, it's fantastic. Sit back and watch. So thank you for being on the show. Let's talk about real quick. Let's do some player highlights for the year up until this point. Coach Rector, talk about a few of your players and some highlights those guys have had.
Sure. Well, it's really been more of a little bit of a team effort on things. Offensively, I feel like our offensive line is probably a little bit, undercredited, as every offensive line in football is. But, those guys up front I think have done a really good job. Dylan Phillips, Blake Mosley, Malcolm Miles, Adam Richardson. There's also Eli Katina and then Nathan Wilkinson. Those are the guys I like to highlight just because, they don't get a whole lot of pub in the press and elsewhere. But obviously our receiver, Emmanuel Hall, our two running backs, Deion Sanders and Tyrell Dotson, and our two quarterbacks have done a good job for us this year, and Connor Rietfeld and Owen Roth. Defensively, Bryce Whitman has been very solid on the defensive line. And Clay Carter, a small sophomore who just has a real nose for the ball, has been really, really good for us. And senior Trent McDermott, who didn't get to play last year due to an injury, has stepped up big time for us this year. So we're really proud of him and coming back off of injury.
Well, those guys that are in the trenches often get so overlooked, especially when you have the glitz and the glamour out on the outside edges and everybody's watching those guys. So, they do get kind of overlooked. Coach Blade, what about your guys at Independence? Tell us about some of your guys.
Well, again, our offensive line probably played their best game 2 weeks ago against Blackman that they've played thus far in my tenure at Independence, and that's with Pete Dorston and Deion Thompson, our center Anthony Dalton, our sophomore right guard Michael Weathers, and then Noah Leak at tackle. And like you said, they don't get a ton of pub out there, but they're definitely the reason we move the ball and get time for the quarterback. Andrew Bunch has had a terrific year for us, and he's probably one of the more accurate quarterbacks that I've coached. And he's having a terrific year. And he's thrown to really three guys that have really kind of stepped up. Nate Johnson, all three of them are juniors. Nate Johnson, Seth Huner, and Adam Swayze. They're really doing a great job on the perimeter and taking what the defense, finding the holes, and then running after the ball, after the catch. That's what they've probably done best. And then Dom Childress, our senior running back, he's a Navy commit, great kid, and he's got he's carrying the bulk of the load at running back, and that's our offense. Our defense, they're kind of a unsung, group of guys themselves. A lot of our offense gets some of the headlines, and senior Adam Martin has had a terrific year. He's also a baseball player for us. He's our middle linebacker. A little undersized, but man, he's a tough kid, got a nose for the ball, and he's really the leader of our defense, along with Jake Heckman, who's a returning all-district player from last year at defensive end. Our corners are doing a good job for us, Kylan Stribling and Alan Watson. Landon Guidry, another sophomore that's really come along and playing well for us at strong safety. So there's a lot of kids that are really playing hard for us right now, and I know I've skipped a few. But we're really pleased with their effort and the way they're going.
Well, when we get into this later in the segment, we talk about the offensive explosiveness that each of you have. With Deion and Emmanuel on your side, and Bunch as quarterback, and those guys throwing the ball all over the place. This could be a high-scoring game. I know that defensively we'd like to try to put a scheme in there that maybe slows it down a little bit and turn it to your favor, but I see this game being an offensive game more so than a low-scoring game. I don't know exactly how your plans are, and we'll talk about that here coming up, but it's going to be very fun to watch, very interesting to see you two guys go at it and your teams working hard and playing for the win. I like to do a segment every time talking about coaching staffs. I love to see those guys. I know they work extremely hard. You're not bearing this load by yourself. I know your stress levels are high, your hours away from your family, things that you have to put into a regular season. These guys are in those, in there with you all the time. And I like to spotlight those guys a little bit and talk a little bit about your coaching staffs, Let's spotlight your coaches real quick about their duties and some things that they bring to the table.
Sure. I guess I'll start. And I'm really proud of our staff. It's a great group of guys. There's a lot of cohesion there, and we really just have a lot of fun. And generally speaking, we're on the same page. And they work their tail ends off. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sure Coach Blade's staff is the same. But offensively, coordinators Brett Tevo, quarterbacks, offensive line Tom Schumann. He's been with me for several years. The wide receiver coach is Paul Perucchi, and the running backs coach is Rob Balfman. He's also the head baseball coach. On the defensive side of the ball, our defensive coordinator is Michael Copley, and he takes care of all 4 of the linebackers on our 3-4 defense. D-line coach is Wade Privet, who's also our athletic director. And then our secondary coach is Coach Rietfeld, Joe Rietfeld, who's been with us now for 2 years. And our freshman coach is Greg Stout, and he might be the hardest working one of all of us. Just a great group of guys, have a lot of fun, and really get after it. I really believe in this staff.
And I know when we did our first coaches preview show, we talked about your coaching staff and the cohesiveness that you have, and how important it is to have those crossover guys that help you in other sports as well. You know, you have your baseball head coach that comes in and helps you, and I think that is very important in high school today that that you share your athletes and you share your enthusiasm for each of the sports program for your school, and I think that's important. I know that pays off for you too, as far as getting baseball players to play football and vice versa. So I think that's very important and a neat aspect that probably goes overlooked. Coach?
Yeah, you guys mentioned a big word that I think this is our second year together, cohesion. Most of my staff returned from last year, so that's a good thing. Offensive line, Mike Matthews and Kelly Myers are working the offensive line, and then Mike does defensive ends and Kelly does D tackles. So we all coach both sides of the ball. At linebacker, and also my defensive coordinator, he helps out on the offensive side with running backs and offensive line, but he's our defensive coordinator linebacker coach. That's Lance White. His wife is Mary Beth White, the girls basketball coach. And then you have Keith Hudson, who does our running backs and helps out defensive ends. Greg Burns does our wide receivers, corners. Jonathan Bourne does our safeties and our second group of wide receivers, our younger wide receivers. Jeremiah Justice, we were able to hire right as the 3 days before the school started, and he's helping out with the running backs as well and the scout teams. Our freshman staff is Chat Gates and Matt Powell. Like I said, we kind of intermingle a whole lot, so everybody's kind of helping out with those young kids as much as we can. But like I said, we're happy with our staff. We like the way they're working. The longer we're together, the better, the more cohesive that unit becomes. But definitely the second year is farther ahead than the first year as far as staff cohesion.
I'd like to give our viewers an inside look, if you will, an All Access Pass. So take us through the week. All right, so we come off a game Friday night. Win or loss, either way, it's hard to enjoy it because we're automatically thinking next Friday night. In this case, it's a short week. Thursday night. Tonight's Thursday night, and I know you're coming off your game Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, you know, the tape, the old school tape way was that we had to go somewhere to get tape. Now we have it online. It's at our access, fingertips. So coaching staffs, when do we get together? When we start game planning again? When's that begin for you, Coach Rector?
Well, almost immediately, actually. Most of our guys will watch the film of the night's game on the Friday night, or in this case, of course, tonight. Then we'll immediately start as soon as we get the tape from the other team if we don't already have it. Sometimes teams are willing to, just go ahead and send the A game over on like a Wednesday or something like that, and so you can always have that one in case there's any film issues. But you'll see our staff will start pretty much first thing Saturday morning after they've watched our game from Friday night. And in this particular week, because it is a Thursday night game and we're playing this evening, we brought our kids in Sunday evening, which wasn't easy because there was a Young Life retreat, and they didn't get back from Georgia until like 5:30. So I mean, we actually brought them in. I think it was 7 o'clock at night to 8:30, which was kind of neat because nobody was on campus, and we sort of had the run of things by ourselves, and that kind of focus was really neat. But on a Monday, which obviously this week was Sunday, type of practice, you're installing a game plan, you're making corrections from what happened the previous game. That's how we do it anyway. And then we actually will run through and set up our special teams and actually get a little bit of team time in. We'll do some conditioning to get their bodies back right again, and that's really the only time we'll do an actual committed conditioning portion for the week. And then your Tuesday practice is a full gear type practice for us, where we're hitting all aspects of the game. Wednesday will be usually uppers, and we'll do special situations in that case, coming out, short yardage, goal line, maybe a little 2-minute if we have time. If not, we'll hit that on a Thursday practice, which obviously was Wednesday this week. And that's generally how we do it. I mean, Wednesday, each day that goes by, the practices get a little bit shorter and shorter to try to prepare their bodies. Try to be fresh for the game. So, obviously yesterday we had a shorter practice, hour and 15 to hour and a half with our older guys, but we'll stay after and have the JV and freshmen be full gear so we can actually do some really good, tougher, more contact type practice with them, since they're not likely to see a lot of time on the Friday game.
Gotcha. Coach, what about at Independence? What do we look like going into game week, preparations, meetings, etc.?
Well, this week is different. Obviously, it's a shortened week, and we're coming off a bye week. But a typical game week would look like Saturdays, the coaches, either Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon. I also have several of our coaches have daughters that play other sports, and I've never wanted to be one of those coaches that said I'm getting out because of lack of family time. So I've made the conscious effort to be able to go to my daughter's meets and allow coaches to do that with their kids. So we'll either go on Saturday or Sunday with our meetings. We don't change a whole lot. Our formations, you're not going to see any exotic formations tonight. They are what they are. And we spend a ton of time on just fundamentals and just routes and how they work versus this coverage, how they work versus that coverage, where the hole is, reading defenses. And so Monday is, like Coach said, it's a more of a fundamental type where we're also introducing the new team. We're going over any changes that we've have to install, if it's a 3-4 defense versus a 4-3, or if it's a multiple offense, any changes we need to make on defense as far as alignment, but we don't change a whole lot there either. So there's not a ton of film time all day Saturday. It's not that way. I've been there, done that. I'm not that way anymore. As I get older, I get probably more simpler.
I had a coach once tell me when I first started coaching, he said the best thing I can tell you is use the KISS method.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. And I took that advice. We ran the high-low offense in basketball, and everybody knew it was coming, but we were good at it because we broke it down to the most minute point, and we could do every nuance of it. We didn't throw 4 or 5 different things at them. We were going to run this, and we were going to run it, and it's your job to stop it. Right. Good luck. Right. That's kind of the philosophy.
And
the kids bought into it.
Right. And what it does is, for us, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel every week. We're running a certain scheme in both sides of the ball, and we're just trying to get better at it. So our Tuesday and Wednesdays are going to be the same thing. We are working on our fundamentals for a great portion of the practice all through the year.
Which goes underlooked so often in high school sports, period.
Yeah.
They just think we can automatically go and beat them with athleticism or whatever the case is, and we tend to skip those little small
things. We'll do
things.
our routes, our route tree, and we don't go very far. We're not a chuck, and we're not going to throw it a ton, 20, 30 yards downfield. So, but we work on our routes. I mean, right side, left side, for 20 minutes a day, and that includes, the day before the game. That includes pregame. That includes pregame on game day. So, and our Thursdays are like coaches. We're an hour to hour and 15 minutes. We have an FCA, voluntary FCA meeting afterwards that the kids can come to in our locker room. We have a speaker come every week. And Fridays, in this case tonight, we'll have our dinner if it's it's an away game. So we're going to basically do our bag check, get on the bus at 4:30. If it's a home game, they're in a lockdown. We put on a movie in 2 different classrooms. Sure. They can sleep, do a walkthrough at 5 o'clock. So we keep the kids on campus. We feed them, keep them on campus, and to try and cut out as much distractions as possible. But we're really simple, and like I said, and I know Coach has been doing this. We've been doing this about the same time, long time, and I've evolved over the years, trying to make it as simple as possible. It's simple, but it ain't easy. It's simple, but it ain't easy because what we do, we try and not that we're disguising a bunch of stuff, but we do coach, finding a weakness, finding a tendency, getting the ball off quick, hitting the hole quick, trying to cover up some of our weaknesses as best we can, and I don't know, let the cards fall where they may type of thing.
Thank you for that inside look. I look forward to when we get back from break, we're going to talk more about this chess match between you two guys, Independence at Centennial. We'll be right back.
Too many of Tennessee's students drop out of high school. If you ask them why, you'll probably hear they just can't keep up because they don't have the reading skills. Success in school is based on success in reading, and learning to read starts with hearing words. With young children, storybook reading plays a special and important role.
Great. What's the last word?
Mom.
Good.
Have fun with reading. Read the directions on the box and bake a cake together. Work with your child to cut coupons and make a grocery list. Read a book about different occupations. Then ask your child what they would like to be when they grow up.
What about an eye doctor, just like your granddaddy?
My eye doctor is much more. He works with some glasses.
He does.
Don't underestimate the impact that reading can have on your child's future. Choose success. Choose reading. This Choose Success moment has been brought to you by the Middle Tennessee P16 Council.
Hello and welcome back to the WCS Sports Connection Coaches Preview Show. Today we're previewing Independence at Centennial. Independence coming into this game 4-2, 1-1 in the district. Centennial 6-1, 2-1 in the district. And I have talked about on our game day on our Monday show. This is a very important game. Matter of fact, up to this point, I know that every game every week is the most important, but this right now is the most important game to date for the whole conference. You two guys battling it out. I see such intriguing matchups on both sides of the ball. Indy's coming off the bye, which in turn, prior to the bye, playing number 1 team or number 2 team ranked right now, Max Preps, Blackman. I don't want to pour salt in the old wound, Coach, but man, what a game you guys had. You went in 42-14, going into the fourth quarter, end up getting beaten a heartbreaker 43-42. What can we take away from that? How do we go as a coach? I know it's difficult to go into your guys and say, you know what, we played an extremely fantastic game. We just didn't finish, or they can't, what do we say? How do we come off this game?
Well, you're right. As coaches, those losses stick with you, and they sting, and they're still stinging, to be honest with you. The players are a lot more resilient than us guys as we get older. That's a credit to them. The kids really played hard for me. And as a coach, you want to win every game. But the reality of it is that's not going to happen all the time, and it hasn't happened all the time for me. So if the kids are playing to as close to their potential, as a coach, that's the positive I'm taking away from it. We got those kids, last year when we played them, we barely got off the bus and couldn't field a snap, couldn't make a block, couldn't throw the ball, couldn't catch a ball, couldn't tackle. All aspects of the game were a disaster, and we got killed. And so, for whatever it is, the Rutherford County teams have intimidated at least Independence in the past, and we wanted to make sure whatever happened, that wasn't going to be the case on that game. And it wasn't. Our kids came out firing. Our kids came out giving their best effort. We didn't back down. We kept going all the way to the end. Unfortunately, their athleticism and made a series of 4 or 5 big plays. It wasn't like they made 50 of them in the game. They kept the chains going. They had their opportunities throughout the game. But we capitalized on most of our opportunities, and we're a little bit sharper through 3 quarters. Unfortunately, like I said, they took over. They made some great plays, and snuck it at the end. But regardless, I'm proud of the way my kids played. We're trying to build off that, but that is something we still got a ways to go. I mean, we were up and we gave up 29 points in the fourth quarter. We've got to figure out how to not let that happen.
At the first of the year, a lot of people have talked about Williamson County versus Rutherford County. That Rutherford County has the greater edge, and there's a big gap between us. But I think what you did for our system and our conference is show that, you know what, we're right there even with them, and any given night, we can beat you. And I think that you opened the door and opened the eyes for every team in our conference to see that with the top 4 teams that we've been speaking of, we got an opportunity, and maybe even possibly use that as motivation. Say, we should set a goal right now to meet those guys again down the road, meaning in the playoffs, hopefully, to have another shot.
Well, it'll come down to, and we carry the torch for the rest of our programs. We know that football is the first major sport at the beginning of the year. And it's not just football. It's, some of the other, sports. And, oh, my gosh, you're playing Blackman and blah, blah, blah. And no, they're kids just like ours. We can stand up. We can, compete with the best. And like I said, that was the goal we had. It was, there's no shame in losing. The goal was never, hey, we're going to blow them out. We didn't know that, the thing was going to unfold the way. You never know.
Right.
But to stand up and try and go toe to toe against a much bigger, physical, more athletic team really says, a lot about our kids and their resiliency. Because last year we didn't have that. We absolutely did not. And like I said, we're not there. We're not even close to where we need to be. But to be able to stand up tall against a real quality opponent was good and something to build on.
That's good. And Coach Rector, coming into this week, the emotional high of the epic showdown last week. You're both undefeated coming into Ravenwood. It's important. This game is so important to both your programs because you're both kind of coming off these losses and you're wanting to get back on the horse per se, especially since it's inside the conference. How do we come off that game?
Yeah, the biggest thing is obviously is to recognize, number one, the disappointment. Unlike Coach Blade's team, we didn't really fight as much as we wanted to or should have in our previous game, and that is upsetting to everybody. So, from the very beginning, we just take responsibility for it. We don't point fingers, and we don't say it's your fault, because it certainly is not one person or one group's fault. You look each other in the mirror and you say, hey, we didn't show up at the showdown, and we've got to move on. And that's exactly what we've been, pressing all week long is move on. This one's got to be behind you, because if you get caught looking back, you'll end up, losing to a very good Independence team, who, in my opinion, is just as good as Ravenwood. And and so now you're at this critical point in the season where, okay, let's define who we are. Let's define what we are. The way you respond to adversity defines who you are. It opens up and exposes your character. And that's what we've talked about all week long. How are you going to respond and how are you going to come out? Win or lose, that really almost doesn't matter. It's the way in which you, not to sound cliche-ish, but it is the way in which you play the game. Sure. And, Coach Blade should be very proud of his team and the way they played versus Blackman. And that's all we're looking for this week is we're looking to be very proud of the way we play versus Independence and give us a chance to win, and I'm sure he feels the same way.
Well, both of your programs have played exceptionally well all year. You've got quality wins. You've got a quality win over Mount Juliet, 39-10. That was one of the wins that you had here recently. And Independence went down to Marshall County and got a real good quality win down there. Matter of fact, arguably one of the best out-of-conference wins that anybody has up to this point. Mm-hmm. And, it's important to build off wins and losses, just like you said, and to say, use it either as motivation or as a point of learning, a point of reference to say, let's get better from these points. So let's talk about tonight's game. Offensively, since Centennial is the home team, let's start with you offensively. What can we expect to see offensively tonight? Well,
hopefully what you'll see is balance. I think that we do better whenever we're balanced, and that balance means being effective in yards per carry and effective in converting first downs, throwing the ball. That's the bottom line. We haven't had a ton of receivers to distribute the ball to, but we have to have somebody besides Emmanuel Hall that makes a couple of catches tonight to get first downs. They don't have to get touchdowns. They don't have to get 60, 70 yards plays. We may not have that on our team besides Emmanuel. But we do need a couple of receivers to step up and the quarterbacks to find them for some first downs here and there. Obviously, we've got to be able to run the football. I mean, that's just what we do. And so, and that's where we fell way short last week is we could not establish a running game. And so we've got to be able to run the football. If we can get some explosive plays in the passing game, everybody knows who it's going to go to. Right. We'll just have to see if we can make that happen because, it's not all that hard to double cover somebody, And so we'll likely see some of that. And if we do, then like I said, we have to have other people step up and make plays.
And by this time of the year, we've watched enough tape to know exactly where everybody's doing. We get it. We know that we have Stardom out on the outside.
That's right.
And you've got Dion, Prime Time coming back in the field. And you want to get him off to a good start
Sure.
and get him going and running the ball to
Sure.
open up those passing opportunities. All right, Coach, what are we going to see on the offensive side of the ball for you guys?
Well, probably polar opposite of coach's team in the fact that they're gonna run downhill. They're gonna get downhill real quick. We've got to give our quarterback time. We're different. We're gonna throw first. That's not that's no great secret. That's our strength. We're going to throw first, and so really kind of an opposite thing there. We want to throw to open up our run,
Sure.
where they're going to run to open up maybe some throwing lanes. So that's what we need to do. So we need to, like I said, 2 weeks ago we had our best effort to date from our offensive line against a real physical, dominating defensive line in Blackman. And we give him just enough time that he can get that ball off, and our receivers could find holes. And for us, that the whole rest of the year, doesn't matter if it's Centennial or if it's anybody else down the road. We've got to protect the quarterback, give him time, let him make good decisions, and move the ball that way. The explosive plays have been a huge part of our offense. It is, and Coach will tell you this, it is really difficult to get those 10, 12 play drives. We like to think 6 to 8 plays. 6 to 8 plays. If we are hitting on all cylinders, we should be scoring in 6 to 8 plays. If not, there's so many things that can go wrong. With the snap, a penalty sets you back. Happened a lot against Ravenwood. All of a sudden, you're behind the sticks.
Sure.
And so if we're doing that, it should be a good offensive night for us.
All right, 6 to 8 plays. Defensively, what are you going to do to stop those 6 to 8 plays?
Well, that's the thing. Number one, it's no secret we put pressure on the quarterback.
Sure.
And so clearly, Coach is exactly right. We have to pressure. He is a phenomenal quarterback, deadly accurate.
Yes.
So if he just sits back there, no question he'll pick us apart. There's no doubt about that. His receivers are a little bit more in tune, maybe a little bit more athletic than some of our defensive backs. And so the receivers can't just run free, totally, unabated. We've got to be able to cut routes, collision routes, put pressure on the quarterback, and even if it's not a sack, sometimes pressure can hopefully make somebody get a little jittery. But he's a cool customer, one of the best I've seen in a long time.
Real quick, 30 seconds. What are you going to do defensively to stop Emmanuel Hall, Deion Sanders, and that powerful offense?
Gap control, and we got to tackle. I mean, that's the thing. He runs through arm tackles. We got to get our body on body and gang tackle and get everybody round to the ball and not get beat by the explosive play, from any of them.
So we've got the heart of the schedule coming. We're just now getting into the fun part of the district schedule, what I consider fun.
Right.
I know that you guys are a stressful time, but it's going to be interesting to see how this is played out. 2 classy programs, 2 classy coaches. Your programs are going great right now. Your student sections and atmosphere at each of your schools are fantastic. Cougar Nation, Indy Nation, everything is rolling your way. Appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for being fantastic guests and being talking about the past and talking about this week. Tonight, kickoff, 7 o'clock Thursday night. Independence 4-2, 1-1 in the district, going to Centennial at 6-1, 2-1 in the district. Appreciate you showing up today. Thank you so much for watching the show. And as always, remember, be nice, Williamson.
If we want to keep the blue in the sky, the green in the trees, we better care for the air we breathe. That it would truly be a breath of fresh air when we all can see forever through the air we breathe. So let's really try to be more aware of what we can do to clean up the air we all share. So let's you and me roll up our sleeves, let's do all we can and care for the air we breathe.